Hi everyone and welcome back to another card making video. Today I'm going to have fun playing with inks and blending, and I will be using these new little handy tools by Waffle Flower. They have just been released and I look at them as a coloring tool, not as a blending brush. You will see how I will use them throughout the video today. There are 4 different ones available. You can see those 2 ones are pinched at the top, so they are flat brushes. These are quite big, so you can cover a bigger area, but you can also create thinner lines. And here are the other 2. These are rounded. Although the bristles in all 4 of these brushes are very soft, just because they are short-haired, it makes them quite stiff, and it's really easy to load it and transfer it on your project. Again, these are not supposed to replace your blending tools. These are just handy tools that you can have for smaller areas. And now let's create 3 cards. On all of them I will be playing with those shader brushes so you can see them in action. I'm starting out with a new die-cut set by Waffle Flower from the latest release, and I'm going to cut out everything that is included in the set, flowers and leaves. This one is called Layered Tulips, and I die-cut everything from white cardstock, and I will add color with blending. And here is everything that I die cut. I'm not going to remove them from my mat. I'm not going to remove them from the outline. I like to blend them as they are, since it makes it easier for me as they don't move around. If you have your die cuts one next to the other, you can go with the smaller brushes, the shader ones. You can be more precise with them and not make any mess on the die cuts close by. But since I do have all the leaves and the stems at the top, I'm not going to make a mess, so I'm just going to use my regular blending brush. So you see, these are not meant to replace your blending brushes, rather they are little handy tools that can help you out in specific situations. After applying the first layer of light green, I am going with the smaller shader brush and I will add some shading. This time I'm using a darker shade of green, and you can see how easy it is to control exactly where I add that shadow. For the leaves I'm going to use the slightly wider one, and I'm going to add that shadow starting from the bottom, doing some brush strokes like swiping. This is the best way to add your shadows. And they may look like a hot mess, but the moment you separate them from the paper, you see how lovely they look. But you can definitely separate the die cuts, so here I am coloring them separately. This time I'm coloring the flowers, and there are 2 layers for each one of the tulips. I'm applying the first layer completely flat, everything is exactly the same color. And this is the new color by Tim Holtz, by the way. And since all those layers are colored the same way, they look flat even when you place one on top of the other, so we need some shading. And that's where those shading brushes come in handy. I'm going to add some shadow with a darker shade of red on the inside of the tulip. This way, when you place the top layer, you will be able to see a darker area, and it turns it looking more dimensional. And of course I am repeating the same technique on the other tulip as well. Always placing the top layer to see if I need any more shadows there. The deeper the shadow, the more dimensional it's going to look. And of course I'm just going to add just a touch of that red at the very base of the top petal. And it's fascinating to me how much difference just a touch of shadow can do. And of course, now that I have all the pieces for my flowers ready, it's time to assemble the tulips. I'm using thin strips of foam tape at the back of the top petal, and I'm going to stick that on top of the base. And you can see the lovely result. There are also some centers for these flowers that I have colored with yellow really quickly, no shading there, and I'm just going to glue them inside between the 2 petals. And there are many ways that you can enhance those centers even more by adding some glitter, for example. And now for putting my card together, I decided to create a little window. I wanted this to be super cute, that's why I used these Lacy Circles Die by Waffle Flower. I'm going to cut out one inside the other, this way I will have a lovely border as well as the center that I'm inking really splotchy with a blue ink. I don't want that to be completely perfect. Now I'm going to create a window again using the same die that I used for the border, which is going to be my window panel. Now at the back of that frame I'm going to add a thin strip of foam tape. If you peel it off you will be able to easily manipulate it and go around the circle with no problem. And I will place it on top of my window. This is going to give a lovely finish. And then by using foam tape I'm going to stick that on top of my card base. By the way, my card base is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. On the inside of my window I'm going to pop in that background, and that blue is going to help those tulips stand out even more. And after 1 hour of difficult decisions of where everything should go, this is how it turned out. And of course on a flower card any sentiment is appropriate, so I decided to go with one of those pre-made sentiments for you by Waffle Flower. I'm using these ones that are already foiled. Perfect, you just pop them out and stick them on top of your card. And there are so many options in this set. You can get all the way from Christmas to hello to happy birthday to congratulations. Everything is included in this little pack. I added my sentiment again using some foam tape so it is leveled with the lovely frame, and I'm going to finish it off by adding some golden pearls. And here are some close-up photos on the first card for today. For my next card I'm going to play with this new set. This is called Snail Trio, and it gives you 3 different snails, 3 different sizes. They are perfect to put together, but the fun part is that they match perfectly with the 3 flat shaker pouches by Waffle Flower, so you can easily turn them into shaker cards. And I have them here, so that's what I'm going to do. I will go with the middle size, and let's make a card with lots of blending and stenciling. So I need to create a background for my little snail to live in, and this is the mushroom, the layered mushroom stencil. And you can see that you get both the stencil as well as the masks. And the masks come so handy when you are creating backgrounds and little scenes. You will see how I'm going to use them today. I'm going to use first the part of the grass at the bottom of a white panel, and I will blend it in with a blending brush. Of course for this one I'm using the bigger brush since I want to cover up quickly a bigger area. However, I can go back with a darker shade of green, and this time I can add my grass just by swiping the shading brush. You can see how I do it here to create lines of grass. And here I'm using the bigger brush, which is pinched at the top, so it is flat. And you can go ahead and add an even darker shade of green if you like for a more dramatic effect. However, I was happy with how it looked up to now. Up here I do have a boo-boo, but I'm not going to worry about it at the moment. I will see how I'm going to cover it up later on. Now let's move on and add a mushroom, again with the same stencil, to have yet another fun element for my background. So first I covered up the grass with the mask, and then I can align the mushroom stencil on top. This time, since the mushroom is quite of a small area, it is easier for me to apply the color with the shading brushes. They just help me to control exactly where I add the color. So I started first by applying some antique linen. Then I will slide my stencil to the other part of the mushroom. This time I will use a slightly darker ink, and that is Vintage Photo. Again applying only a touch, and you can see how these shading brushes work just like a coloring tool. And of course I do switch to my bigger blending brush when I need to cover up a bigger area. Here I wanted to add some shading, that's why I switched to the smaller brush, so that I can add some shading only at the bottom. Now I will move to the base of the mushroom, And again here I used two colors, Anti-Linen, which is the lighter one, and Vintage Photo for the shading. All the inks that I'm using are oxide inks today, so they blend really beautifully. I remove the mask from the bottom and you can see my lovely background is ready. I still need to add the white dots on my mushroom, but I will do that later on. Now I'm going to create the shaker element for my snail, and I strategically placed that circle so that I can die cut out that boob that I had while I did the stenciling with the green. Now I do have the window there. I'm going to ink up my snail, and again I'm using colors that I did use on my background so I don't introduce too much color in my card and make it look too busy. I am going with Anti-Linen and a little bit of shading at the bottom with Vintage Photo, and you can see how easy it is to add that shading instead of using my alcohol markers. Just a few strokes and the snail looks already dimensional. I'm using glue at the back of my panel so that I can stick in there my slim shaker cover. This doesn't have a dome, it is flat, but it adds quite enough of a space for all your shaker elements to move around. I think these snails are really unique, especially when you turn them into shaker elements. Love the fact that you get 3 different sizes. And if you check the release by Waffle Flower, you will see that there are tiny envelopes that match perfectly with this snail, as well as a sentiment stamp set. And this is where I don't know when to stop. I'm having lots of fun playing with the stencils and the blending brushes, so I just want to add an extra layer of grass on my card. And since I had that shading brush loaded with that darker color of green, I'm going to add some extra underneath the snail, and I'm finally pretty happy with how that looks. I'm adding some golden confetti inside my shaker window. I'm going to cover it up with brown cardstock. And I will stick this panel on top of my card base, that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I did use foam tape at the back, by the way. Now this is where I remembered I haven't added the white dots on top of my mushroom. You can definitely go with Versamark ink here and apply some white embossing powder, heat set it to have all those dots bright white. However, this is where I decided that it would be even more fun to add some pearls instead. This is the Snailed It stamp set that has lots of sentiments that go perfectly well with those snails, but you can definitely use them separately. I did go with one that says Snailed It, and I placed it again strategically, making sure that I cover up another boo-boo that I had from inking. And here are some close-up photos on the second card for today. And let's move on to the third card for today using a really unique stamp set. This is called Hand Delivered. It gives you a girl and a boy and lots of other images that you can color die cut and stick them on top of the figures. You will find out that it's going to cover them up completely and they are going to look as if they are holding them. So here is the little girl along with a basket full of flowers. If I place it on top of the girl, can you see those little hands at the bottom of the basket? It looks as if she is holding it, which gives you lots of options on how to use this stamp set. And you can have them holding a huge envelope, a basket full of fruits, a gift, a bunch of flowers, balloons, or even the one image that I'm going to work with today. I don't know how Waffle Flower does it, but they always come up with really unique ideas. So here I colored everything using my alcohol markers and I'm sticking one on top of the other. You can definitely use foam squares at the back if you like to add even more dimension. For my background I'm using a stencil with lots of stars and the shading brushes allow me to use 2 different colors. So I went with yellow and pink and I'm keeping this background quite simple. I'm going to stick this girl on top along with one of the ready-made sentiments that is foiled. I decided to go with thank you. And all I have to do is to stick it on top of my card base. So here are some close-up photos of the last card for today. This video is part of a blog hop As we celebrate the latest release by Waffle Flower, make sure to visit my blog, there are lots of giveaways to be won. I hope that you had fun today, that you got inspired. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you all next time.